Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. It's Sunday evening in the UK. Miracles are happening. The Washington Commanders are actually winning a game of the NFL, which I know Parker and Andy are probably on the edge of their seats. They're not winning by a lot, but they are currently winning. So we'll leave
plenty of time for it to all go wrong yet.
It is Washington after all. It generally does. So when I am, as you can hear and see, he has back from paternity leave. Well, he was a bit here a little bit, but the man of the Bang Bang Gang himself, the man with a son that's called Ace, it is Dave Robinson is back. Dave, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah, a bit of
paternity
leave.
It was touch and go for a minute.
yeah, a bit of paternity leave, and then we tried to make things work the other day, and life's just been a little bit hectic the last few weeks. But your Collision Cowboy is back. And yeah, looking forward to talking about the show. I thought it was a great show this week.
Yeah,
there was a lot of good stuff to dissect.
There is. Wanted to get your first off before we start, because obviously we wasn't here for the whole war that went on Tuesday. What did you make of all of that as a whole? I think it got a bit silly, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I was ignoring it to a degree, and as I say, I've been quite busy as well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tune out to some of the negativity and just really enjoy the positivity. I mean, we were just talking before the show started about, how much good wrestling there is, and it kind of been frustrating that we haven't got time to kind of absorb all of it. I'd love to start watching NXT again. I'd love to have the time to consistently watch Raw and SmackDown. But for me, I kind of have to stick with my favorite, if you like, and that is the AEW stuff. But man, it's interesting to a degree, and ratings are a good indicator. But I think there's so many other indicators that you could look at, and if you just focused on one, it kind of would render some of the others irrelevant. Yeah. So for me, I'm just glad that wrestling is doing so well. I'd like AEW, my criticism of AEW, the one thing I'd like them to change moving forward, and it didn't really apply for this week because Collision in particular it looked a pretty full house. I think sometimes they book venues that are just too big. I would like some more intimate venues and like, do you remember the WCW shows, like the Spring Break show, and it had the pool around, the water around, and then they did like the Mall of the Americas, was it?
Mall of America, they done the first ever Nitro from.
Yeah, and what was the one? Road Wild, when they when they used to do it outside.
Yeah, with the bikes, Hog Wild.
Yeah, I know that's kind of weather dependent and state dependent, time of year dependent. But I would love to see some more of those type of shows, because AEW in many ways is like the spiritual successor to WCW. Tony Khan was a big WCW fan, and a lot of the guys that work there were, you got people like Shivani and, so I would really like some of that good stuff that we got from WCW that was very, very different to what we saw from the WWE at the time.
Yeah.
And I'd like them to use that going forward and just be a little bit different. I don't want them to be WWF or WWE light. I want them to be their own product. And I think you get the best content from AEW when they're just focusing on what they do best and they're not trying to emulate what other people are doing. So that would be my thing. I know I've kind of gone off on a tangent there, and it doesn't really answer the question about the Tuesday Night War. But yeah, I think ultimately it's a good thing that we're having those discussions and there is like that competition there, because for far too many years there wasn't really any competition, and now there's too much.
No, there is. I mean, we've only got another 3 or 4 weeks until there's a Friday Night War with Collision and SmackDown era on a Friday. What I think is what really won was wrestling. That was the main thing. 1.5 million people tuned in to watch wrestling on the Tuesday night.
Exactly.
The only other question I have, and it was a bit of I don't know, because I know you're not a Twitter person. Did you see anything on the internet regarding some tweets by Tony Khan?
I haven't, mate. No. Enlighten me.
It's a bit difficult to go in, but let's just say he went off on one.
Yeah.
On Twitter, especially.
I don't think he does himself any favors when he does that. It's not really. It's a bit childish. You know, to be like not really carrying yourself in as a chairman, as the, you know, the owner. I think you've just got to rise above it sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of years ago when we had AEW, we was Dynamite against NXT.
Yeah.
I think really AEW won that encounter, and obviously NXT changed nights and that. But again, if you just looked at the overall picture there, the amount of people watching wrestling, it was fantastic. Now, whatever NXT are doing at the minute, and I'd love to know a bit more, to be honest. I've caught bits. I've watched a few of Tyler Bates matches because I try and, because he's from local, he's from near where I live.
Yeah.
So I try to keep on top of what he's doing. And there's some really good stuff. But whatever they're doing, for them to kind of have that landslide victory on Tuesday, really, if you're looking at it neutrally, that's just a great thing for wrestling. So what have NXT changed? What are they doing now that they weren't doing then during that time where they were up against Dynamite? So
it was simple. They loaded the show.
Yeah, do you think it's just because of the bigger names that came in? Because obviously I didn't watch the show, so how much of it was the NXT talent and how much of it was the main roster guys?
It was a bit of both, to be honest. But I think the more thing was NXT beat AEW the week before.
Yeah,
and that was with literally a development. It was a developmental show. It literally had the women's breakout tournament, and then a couple of bits for Judgment Day. This week, Cody started it. Cody was GM, but that wasn't announced until later. Like, as in the GM bit wasn't announced until later when he announced a Dusty Classic, the men's breakout. It was a bit more sort of, I'd say, pushing the 50-50 mark. I mean, the Undertaker at the end, right at the end. Or the American Badass, should we say, right at the end, which me and Andy didn't agree with. It was burying Braun Breaker, which I didn't think was the best thing to do, considering that's one of the guys that you want to be called up. So it didn't make sense to do that.
Again, I haven't watched it, I haven't read about it. I heard guys on Busted Open mention it, but could that possibly lead to a match, or was it just a one-time deal?
No, definitely not. No, it won't lead to a match with the Undertaker anyway. He got in Cena's face.
Yeah, Braun Breaker did.
Yeah. And then at the end, he actually lost the match in the end. But then he attacked Carmelo Hayes afterwards and said, "I'm the only badass in the business." And as soon as he said that, the goal hit. And then the bike started up in the background, and out come the Undertaker, and he gets chokeslammed. But anyway, that's WWE. Let's park that conversation. Starting off Collision this week, Adam. I'm getting used to it calling him that now. Adam Copeland tried to start Collision this week. Very quickly interrupted by Christian Cage. Very quickly added some to his ranks in the Nick Wayne, and Luchasaurus was there. Enter FTR. Enter the Ricky Starks and Big Bill. I was going to get actually your things on that very quickly before we move on to the show. Ricky Starks, Big Bill, Tag Team Championship squash match last week. How shocked were you at that match?
I was shocked. I really was. I mean, I know they were playing on the angle of Cash being injured.
Yeah.
But apparently, one of the things I did read was it was kind of FTR's call as such, to do that. But yeah, I don't mind that. As much as we do like longer title reigns and we like titles to be established, shock results like that keep things interesting as well. And I definitely think Ricky Starks was in danger of being lost in the shuffle when he'd done so much this year and he'd done so well to establish himself as one of the stars of Collision. So I think even though it's not a singles title, it's a tag title, I think it was a real smart thing to get gold around Ricky's waist, particularly with everything going on with the other titles and stuff really tied up, and creative probably changed in terms of the real world title as well that's now been ditched by AEW.
Yeah.
So to get Ricky as a tag team, and not just a tag team champion, somebody that defeated FTR, who haven't really suffered many losses over the last few years. I thought it was a bit of a masterstroke, to be honest. I didn't expect it. I was surprised, but I do like it.
Yeah, it was a good one. Anyway, Bryan Danielson came out and said that the match tonight, because he said, I think Christian made a point of being able to beat Bryan Danielson without anybody out there. So he came out and said, well, that's fine. Because Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus was barred from ringside. And there was a bit of a melee. No cold intro this week.
No, yeah. And that's been pretty popular, hasn't it? You know, there's definitely been a little bit of a change in Collision in recent times. but I really did enjoy this show. I thought it was well structured. I liked the fact that they got the time at the start and the time at the end to bookend the show. There's probably quite a bit of time committed to it, but it was committed to a number of performers, and there's a number of stories to tell. So you could say that it took a little bit of the focus off an individual story, such as Starks and Danielson, but there was a lot of layers there, and there were a lot of things to get into prior to the full gear card being finalized. So I really liked it. I think AEW just get criticized at times for the storytelling or not long term. The stories not being long term, and there's a lot in there that have been long term stories. And we're still unsure which way they're going to go in terms of who's going to face who at the pay-per-view. So, yeah, I'd just say I know Collision's changed a bit, and it's interesting that those intros at the start have stopped, and I don't really know why. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm hoping it's just a week
one-off.
Yeah, a one-off. But we'll see. First match on the show was Samoa Joe versus Willie Mack for the Ring of Honor World Television Championship. It was a quick match, but it was two big power guys. I call it the old meat slapper. Couple little awkward bits in there, but ultimately Joe picks up the win with a muscle buster. I don't think it was in doubt that he was going to lose. The question was more so is A, obviously, did you like the match? And B, Joe's approaching a reign that could overtake Jay Lethal's reign as one of the longest reigns. Is he going to beat that reign?
I'd say so. He's about 20 days out. I can't see him dropping that title anytime soon. I think he's really going to go on a tear now, and he's going to put a bit of a streak together, and he'll be back in the world title picture at some point. Willie Mack's a guy that I've seen over the years in a number of different promotions, Indies, Impact. I don't know if he was in something with WWE at a time. I know he's been to a lot of promotions and done a lot of things. This was a match that I didn't know I wanted, but when it happened, I thought it was really, really good. Willie Mack was actually featured in the Collision intro video package, which I thought was peculiar. But obviously, when the show started and the match was going ahead, it made sense. So it looks like he's been added to the roster, like not just a one-off appearance or. So I thought he was a real kind of different type of match that you don't see a great deal of. As you say, a meat slapper. And the AEW, you've got a lot of guys in that meat division, really, that can put on these type of match. I think there was the awkward spot with the power slam. I thought it broke his neck. So I was glad to see that wasn't as bad as it first looked. But Joe picked up the win with a muscle buster, one of the best finishes in the game at the minute. I think Joe's just awesome. We spoke about it at length. The run Samoa Joe's on, the run that Christian Cage is on, they're two of the real things that I'm enjoying the most in wrestling in 2023. That those guys, veterans, they've been there, they've done it. They just have found ways to continue making their characters so interesting. And more often than not, they're two of the best performers on the card. I really enjoyed this, and I'm interested to see where it takes Samoa Joe in the next few months.
Yeah, he's been doing some good promos on Dynamite as well.
Definitely.
Main Event Mafia Joe more so. And you're right, Willie Mack was signed for a cup of coffee in WWE, then they found some irregularities in his blood pressure during a medical.
Okay.
And, although Willie Mack suspects it was something else, which we won't go into on this particular show.
Yeah, it's been my homework this week to read up on his story, because the commentary team did touch on it a few times, that he was kind of, even when he was a kid, he was abandoned, or after 3 months. Did you hear that line they said?
Yeah, I think that's how long he was in WWE for.
Yeah. So obviously a journeyman, really. He's been there, and he's been to a lot of promotions. But I think he put in a real good showing. And they obviously think highly of him to put him in that opening package even prior to this match happening. So, I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, well, we'll hold you to that as well, by the way. So they went to the back. CJ Perry was there, Miro's wife, saying basically she wants to manage and she wants to create champions. That will then come to Action Andretti, who seemingly wanted to be having her as a manager. This is kind of going on with the Miro situation, which we still not really been back yet much. But is this going to be an interesting pairing, Action Andretti and CJ Perry?
Well, I think Miro is going to do everything he can to make sure that she doesn't manage anybody. And Action Andretti was his first kind of victim when he was talking later on, and he kind of pulled him out, and Action might be thinking twice about that. I think they're actually set to face each other one-on-one next week. I love Miro, and I love the Redeemer character. So I'm glad that upon his return, he's continued with it. And there's definitely some interesting stuff that can come off of this. Action Andretti isn't the guy that Miro is going to be feuding with long term, or the guy that CJ Perry is going to be partnered with. No. You wouldn't imagine. But sooner or later, they could reach a situation that could lead to some really intriguing matches for Miro. So I think she talks really well as well, CJ Perry. I think she's really kind of capable and confident on the mic. So again, I enjoyed this. It's kind of at the start of the story in terms of it, although we've got the history of Miro and CJ, and they're married in real life, and she used to be his manager at the other place. It's the kind of start of this story arc, and I'm interested to see where they go with it. I was trying to think of who I would like CJ to ultimately end up managing. I would have loved it to circle back to somebody like Powerhouse Hobbs, but obviously he's got other stuff going on now with the Don Callis family.
You've got a new family.
Yeah, so I wouldn't imagine it would be him, because obviously they had the match. They've had the one match, haven't they? And I thought there's more in that, down the line. But it doesn't look like it's going to be him. So it remains to be seen who it might be, and whether it's somebody that's already in AEW or not. I'm sure we'll find out over the next weeks and months.
You certainly will. Now, you've got the shirt, I believe. You're wearing the shirt. Guns up. Time for Guns Up. It is Juice Robinson, and he was going against Christopher Daniels. I mean, talk about another one who was apparently barred from Collision under a certain Pepsi era of Collision. Yeah. Juice was it. This was a really actually good match. It was two veterans here. They knew what to do. Daniels, for me, is still absolutely timeless in the ring. There was near the end, he hit that really, it would look a brutal Death Valley driver for a close two. He called for the Angels' wings. Obviously, at that point, it's when Juice put him into the corner, followed up to the cannonball and hit the Juice is Loose. Apparently, that's his finisher. Not the worst finishing name I've heard. Just check out the NWA review for that. But Juice is Loose. He picks up a win, and then Jay White proposes to him in the halfway with the diamond ring, because they're going to do a Dynamite dozen, right? Battle Royal this week on a Dynamite for the Dynamite diamond ring. But a great victory for our good friend Juice Robinson.
Well, there's definitely a couple of Hitting the Turnbuckle Gold members over here. Like, we're big fans of Bullet Club Gold.
We are.
So entertaining, so funny. The guys look like they're having so much fun as well out there, which is really translating to some good segments as well. I thought this, again, I think people like Christopher Daniels have got a place in AEW. They're not the stars now. They're working with the stars of the show, putting on some good matches, some competent matches, and the right guys are picking up the wins and they're getting the necessary spotlight. And that is something I think AEW does well overall, the use of the legends and the use of people like Christopher Daniels, who, as you say, he can still go. But he's not the future of the company. For me, Bullet Club Gold are certainly in the short term. Really intrigued as to where they go with MJF and Jay White. Everything says to me that MJF retains, but the closer we get to it and the more it goes on, you just start. I have started to buy into Jay White as the AEW World Champion, and I think he'd do a great job as well. I just thought I thought Max would have a longer run, so I'm really approaching Full Gear. Not quite sure which way I'll go with my prediction, which is what you want, isn't it? You don't want those big matches to be predictable. You don't want to know the outcomes, really. You want them to zig when you expect them to zag. And they may well do that with Jay White. I just think those four guys are just looking great as a unit. And five if you include Carblade, I suppose.
You've got to include Carblade.
Yeah.
Got to include Carblade. But they're looking really strong, and let's hope that carries on up to Full Gear.
Juice, for me, has been the biggest surprise, to be honest, because when he came in, I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I was familiar with him to a degree. I spoke to a mate of mine that's a big New Japan fan, and he wasn't a massive Juice fan, really. He's kind of mid-card type of, guy. But for me, he's just elevated himself. And whether it's been in tag matches with Jay White or whether it's been in single matches like we saw this week, He's been in 6-man tags, he's been in 8-man tags, 10-man tags. Every time I've seen him in the ring, I've been impressed with his performance. And his character, the way he swaggers down to the ring, his mannerisms, his catchphrases, he's even his nicknames. He's got a number of them as well. Now he's the Stray Bullet, Rock Hard Juice Robinson, Collision Cowboy of the Month. I'm a big fan of Juice Robinson, and I'm really glad that AEW have really made him a star, because he absolutely is. Now he's certainly one of the faces of Collision, if he's not one of the faces of AEW in the whole.
Yeah, no, definitely. I totally agree with that. More juice on our screens, please. The next match, I was quite surprised because Cole Fletcher come out and there was no reaction to the Open, which I was a bit disappointed with. I like Cole Fletcher. I think he's a great worker. I like Aussie Open as a team, obviously, but due to injury, that isn't going to happen for a while. And he took on another one that's been going on Collision quite recently, Boulder. For a little bit, and the match wasn't particularly long. It was quite a quick one. The main event took up a lot of time on this show, and we'll get into that. Obviously, the Dragon Sleeper, the leg lariat to the back of the head, and then a Dragon Sleeper wins it for Cole. But I'm liking to see the Iron Savage. I'm liking this sort of talent that you used to see a little bit on Dark and Elevation, and a little bit on Ring of Honor, and they're getting more TV time on a TV. Ring of Honor's on a channel, but we don't really get to see it. I'm liking to see more of these sort of ones, up and coming ones, coming through a bit more.
Yeah, and Boulder's been the standout, to be honest, out of the three of those guys in the Iron Savages. I think the only problem with Carl Fletcher is fans don't really know it to boo him or cheer him, because Aussie Open have been kind of positioned as faces and heels at times, and they're kind of just... it's great that he's on the show, and it's glad to see that he's going to get a singles run, even with Mark Davies out. I think it's a wrist injury, so hopefully he's not out for too long. But it's a shame, because they'd become regulars on AEW television. So in some respects, I'm glad that Carl's still going to, and not just appearing and losing, that he's picking up victories as well, because I think that's important. I think there's only so many times you can beat people before it really starts to impact them as believable, threats to titles and to tougher opponents, if you like. So I'm glad he picked up the victory, and it's a pretty convincing one as well. But I think there's some character work that's needed, and they kind of need to make a decision what they're going to do with Aussie Open moving forward as well, whether they are going to be fan favourites or whether they're going to be aligned with the likes of the Don Callis family, which obviously Will Ospreay is in the United Empire. So there's a lot of there's a lot to be decided there. But in the short term, I'll take seeing some more of Carl Fletcher, because, as I say, 24 years old, great performer, and got a real big future in wrestling.
Certainly has. And then we go back to the Acclaimed, and Daddy asked, who they're still worried about Max Caster's fascination with MJF. Told him to basically say something nice, removed Renee out of the way. Renee come back in, and he said, "Hey, Renee, how about those oral sessions?" Which didn't go down too well. That led up to the former Jericho Appreciation Society, really, wasn't it? It was Menard, Parker, and Garcia. They challenged them for the Trios Championship. They accepted, and they said Garcia still can't dance, which is, he can dance. And no, I'm not doing that.
We got booed as well when Hager pulled him away, which was quite funny. And there's something they're building there. I mean, the Max Caster line, obviously, Renee's podcast was called Oral Sessions. So
and he done that rap, didn't he?
He did the rap
to Kingston and Moxley, and he said about your wife is in my mentions trying to hit me up for some oral sessions. Led them to be attacked as soon as they got into the ring. Which
so, there's a bit of history there with that as well. And I thought it was quite a funny line. I think Renee's actually changed the podcast to just the session.
She has now. She has just changed the sessions. Yes.
But I mean, that's another little interesting wrinkle, the Max Caster MJF stuff. There's just a lot of little bits of stories that are kind of ticking along in the background. And for me, I find that interesting. I find that, Max is obviously a trios champion, but he's also got a little story going on with MJF as well. And MJF's got multiple stories going on with multiple potential challengers, whether that's Jay White, Samoa Joe, Wardlow. Don't know if you've noticed, but Wardlow, MJF has
he's got him on his tape. I mentioned that on the podcast.
Yeah, which is something they haven't addressed on commentary, but something that is quite in plain sight. So there's I think they've done a lot of good work in recent months to try and develop some storylines and tried a few different things. Not everything's worked. We spoke to Vince Russo in the past, or you and Andy did, about just throwing ideas out and seeing what works and seeing what's a hit and seeing what does well in the 15-minute segments. And I think AEW are doing that. They are being brave and they're trying some different things and things that we haven't seen from them before. And to have one of the trios champions involved with the world champion is definitely something that we're not accustomed to. So yeah, I'm interested to see where that one goes as well.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be interesting. We move on to now Skye Blue and Kris Statlander next. It was actually quite a good match. She's definitely turning Skye Blue into Skye Black, and I think that's because Julia Hart is taking some leave because she's getting married to Lee Moriarty. No,
it's not Lee. It's Lee Johnson.
Oh, it was a Lee.
Shorty Lee, is it?
I got a Lee. Right, it was right.
Yeah.
That's good enough. Because I remember she posted it was the last time is going to see me dressed up in white, or something. The only day I'll be dressed in white, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So it looks like that she's going to be doing a heel. Looks like Skye Blue's going to be doing heel turn. She spit mist in Skye Blue's face a little while ago, and ever since then, those clouds around her eyes are getting darker and darker and darker. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Statlander comes in. Again, I thought this was a really strong offering. Although Statlander did win with a Saturday Night Fever, it was a really strong offering from Skye Blue. She swipes away the handshake. Willow comes in, who's another one that's had the mist spit in her face. So we don't know if there's going to be another 2 members of the House of Black there eventually. But she sort of said, look, I've got this. Statlander leaves the ring. But a really good women's match on this one, Dave.
Yeah, I think this was actually a match of the night, to be honest. I thought
really?
It was... prior to the main event, up to that point, it was a real good match. But what I'm more interested in is Skye Blue's character development. Again, she's become a lot more interesting now that there's this possibility of the heel turn. And I could actually see Willow and Skye joining House of Black. I could see that. I could see them having the 3 women there and the 3 men in the House of Black. And I think that could set up some real good stuff. Willow is obviously a massive fan favorite, and part of you would think, do you really need to do that? Do you just leave her as she is? But I think she could go on a bit of a journey as a heel and come back as an even bigger babyface in the future. So that's where I'd definitely do that. I think they need more characters in the women's division. Toni Storm, one of the best women characters. Yeah. Full stop. We don't need to preface that with female. She's one of the most interesting characters in AEW.
Yeah,
by far. And there's people there like Athena, like Skye Blue, like Willow Nightingale that, given the right opportunity, I'm sure they could be equally as interesting. So, yeah, I'm all for this again. I think this could lead to some really good stuff. And if Aleister Black, Tommy End, Malachi Black, whatever we want to call him, if he is involved with the creative direction of it all as well, I think that would be a great thing. And I think they'd be safe in his hands.
Definitely. Let's have more House of Black members for sure.
Yeah.
Carl Fletcher was back and he's called out Kenny Omega for Dynamite on Wednesday. That's me sorted. That match will obviously go ahead. He's obviously going to call him out. And then even more better, Roosh, Dralistico, Preston Vance are driving in their
Blanco.
There you go. And he said, if you mess with the ball, you get the horns, which basically means LFI will be back on our screens very, very soon. Please hurry up. We need them back on our screen. Speaking of back on our screens, Keith Lee. Now, his opponent, Turbo Floyd, is a part of the Outrunners that are on NWA.
Okay.
I instantly knew who he was. So I didn't. The only annoying thing was he done a really quick job for Keith Lee. I mean, literally. I mean, Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty was watching it. It literally was back body drop, huge pounce, spirit bomb, done. Yeah. And Lee's winning. We're getting to see a lot of the big men come back. I mean, you mentioned the Wardlows. Hobbs is going in the right direction. I've said before, and I said it last week, I'm still not fully tuned in on Wardlow because it seems to do this all the time. He comes in, he does all these squash matches, it has a big match, loses it, and then disappears. Yeah. Keith Lee is now having these squash matches with no real feud yet. But he is back on our screens on Collision the last couple of weeks. Where do they go with him?
Keith Lee is a big puzzle for me. I just don't care about him, and that sounds really, really harsh, but I just don't. And I don't know. I can't put my finger on what it is, because I know he's capable of these fantastic matches and the moves that he shouldn't be able to do and stuff. But I just think they haven't put it all together into a package that I really want to see on a consistent basis anymore. He actually his image comes up or his name comes up, Keith Lee in action, and I just shrug my shoulders, and that's probably like one of the harshest things I've said about any performer. But I don't necessarily believe it's his fault. I don't think they really know what to do with him.
No.
And since really he split with Swerve, they never finished that feud. They never paid that feud off, which maybe that was the problem. That was just left as it was, and it was as if, I don't know, apathy, I suppose, that Keith Lee, in terms of his character on screen and that story, didn't really care about Swerve turning on him and the heinous attack and the breeze block, and then he's just carried on and
Shrugged it off.
shrugged it off, turns up every now and again, has a match, beats somebody, and I think it's a problem. I mean, I don't know. I'd be fascinated to hear what you think about it, mate, because it's a head scratcher for me. I know a few people told me to check out some of his matches with the Stone Pitbull in Japan. What's his name now? Stone Pitbull. He's the guy who faced Luke
Jacobs.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Ishii.
Yeah. So Ishii and Keith Lee apparently had some insane matches. They were brilliant. I mean, the guy who told me said it's probably his favorite match of all time, Ishii against Keith Lee. I haven't checked it out yet, and I should, because that shocked me. That would be somebody who's watched a lot of wrestling as well. But yeah, I just don't think AEW have got it figured out at all in terms of Keith Lee.
No, I agree. But I agree. He's also a mystery. Didn't work in WWE, so not working in AEW. So again, I agree with you. It seems to be a Keith Lee mystery.
What would you do with him? Would you turn him heel?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Just don't call him Bearcat like WWE did.
I'd have him as a horrible, horrible heel. Like, channel kind of perhaps Mark Henry and I don't know. I'm trying to think of a big guy with lots of impressive. Lesnar comes to me because I just got the picture of Lesnar like doing a shooting star press, which I haven't seen Keith Lee do, but I've seen him do like planches over the top rope and like impressive things that you wouldn't expect from a big man. So yeah, the character work of someone like Mark Henry, who is in AEW as well, you would think that the two would gravitate towards each other, and Mark Henry would really be able to get the best out of Keith Lee, or give him some real, and he may well do, give him some tips, pointers, advice, be involved with the creative direction for Keith Lee. I'm not saying it's a lost cause. It's just a puzzle for me at the minute. And this match, I didn't care about this match at all.
It's a puzzle that we can't solve. That's for sure at the minute. Anyway, but I believe we go straight to, this was quite weird because I saw the main event that was meant to get Commander and Brian Cage due to injury. That didn't happen.
Oh, was that injury? Is that why they got so long in the
Tony
main event?
Khan tweeted it about it this morning. It was this morning when I read it. It was this morning. It was about an injury. Didn't say to who, but pulled the match, and we'll have it another week. Then we got a very long, which wasn't a bad thing, to be fair. There was a long main event between Christian and Danielson. There was quite a "fuck you, Christian" chant, I believe. There was some really look at me words out. Christian was really going for the arm of Danielson, which was really, that's a wily veteran move considering he wanted the bell lock. There was matches there when part of this match when Danielson hit the beside a knee. There was so much stuff, and then obviously he said it was time to kick his fucking head in. There was a long 2 count. Then he hit the bell lock, but he was trying to fight to the ropes, barely got there. Tried to get it on again, couldn't get it on him because of his arm. Referee was distracted because Big Bill was there. Ricky Starks hits him with a title. Christian retains, and then at the end of all of this, Adam Copeland spears Nick Wayne to end Collision. But a really solid main event. 2 wily veterans. Christian's probably the best heel in the business right now, I would say. And Danielson's just having the last year's ride of his life.
Mate, I should never be shocked by Danielson, of how good he is. But he's selling in this match his arm. And obviously he had the surgery, he had the metal bar put in after the match with Okada.
Yeah.
He's just he's possibly the best seller of all times in terms of the amount of matches I've seen him have. And I think he's legitimately injured. As much as we're kind of insiders, marks, whatever you want to call us. We've watched a lot of wrestling. We know how it works. We know that, when stuff is for real or when it's part of the story, 9 times out of 10. But the amount I genuinely fear for his physical, for his safety, for the fact whether the match should be called off, whether he's really hurt himself, whether he's aggravated something. He's done it so many times to me, but he continues to do it. The finish at the end with him not being able to hook the label lock in, if you watch back, he's actually got his head lower down because of his other arm isn't linched in, so he's kind of to the side, which meant that he couldn't see Ricky Starks coming. Which again, that level of attention to detail, because Starks came from the other side of the ring, his head was low, I caught him with a belt. The attention to detail. The stuff that really is appreciated by fans such as ourselves, they've watched wrestling for a long time.
Yeah.
I thought this was an excellent match. I misspoke earlier when I said about the Sky Blue Statlander. As good as that match was, up to that point, I think that was match of the night.
Yeah.
This was a pay-per-view level match. It really was. And again, with what they'd done I know they'd kind of set up Big Bill and Ricky at the start, and the Ricky and Danielson have got the continuing story. But banning Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne was a smart thing to do as well, because while they're standing at ringside, you're thinking it's obvious what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And they're going to be featured into the finish. So it was one-on-one for 20 minutes or 17, 18 minutes of this match. Which led for some great drama, some great near falls as well.
Yeah, some big time near falls.
Yeah, you had the spear and the kill switch near fall. You had the Psycho knee near fall as well. You had the Hurricane Rana into a sunset flip, which was really, really well executed. These two guys, they're both having a great run. And I agree with you. I think Christian is the best heel in wrestling right now. And as the weeks go by and this story with Copeland goes by, I'm really looking forward to that match. And I don't know whether they do it at Full Gear. I don't know whether they keep it going longer and they have the payoff next year, even at All In. It depends how can they book it? How can they keep it interesting? How can they keep them apart? But I think the longer they keep them apart with weeks like this, it just makes the story more and more interesting. So it's got to be a real difficult one for Tony Khan to decide, do we pull the trigger on this match now, where we'd probably expect Christian to win and retain the belt, or do we keep this going long term and see that match down the line? There's enough people involved in it. There's plenty of variations and different matches they can do. You got people like Sting and Darby that could, find themselves back in this as well after, their kind of last run-in with Christian. So again, mate, I'll throw it over to you. When would you book Copeland against Christian?
I would see this out as long as possible. I would wait. I'd make Copeland have to beat every single one of them.
Yeah,
Luchasaurus, I know that, but I'd get him to beat every one of them before he gets to Christian. So you long this out until next year, maybe, if they do. Maybe the end of December. I know they've booked a pay-per-view now for the end of December the 30th. I think they've got another pay-per-view after Full Gear. Sting, fun enough, is addressing the fans this week. I saw that on Dynamite. But long this one out as long as possible. Great episode of Collision as normal. Buckle Boys now switching gears. We are very busy, not even just with Dave, with the baby, and we're talking wrestling busy as well. Next 4 weeks, Buckle are attending shows all over the place. I think Andy's at New Force Wrestling. Me and Rachel are at Progress next Sunday. We are then next Saturday at RCWA. We are then the following Sunday at Revolution Pro, and then our spiritual home on the following week on the 12th of November, where we will all, actually you will be there, your dad will be there, I will be there, Rachel will be there, my lad will be there, Andy will be there, and his daughter will be there as we go and watch Ignite Wrestle Pro. Literally 30 odd seats left now, so if you haven't got them, hurry up. because
I've got a BCCW show in there as well. So there's a lot of independent UK wrestling that we're trying to support and get around. And looking forward to seeing all the guys. Looking forward to seeing Mike's first defense of the turnbuckle title as well, smashing Mike.
Yes.
There's some matches already been announced, hasn't there? I won't.
Four matches, but we'll get CJ on to go through that like we did last time. Go through all of that. But
it'd be great to catch up with CJ again.
Yeah, Mike's first defense against Kris Ridgway, for those of you that do or do not know, one of the best wrestlers around. So that'll be a very level up for Mike. He's going to need to level up. And I do know who the next contender is in February to the winner of that match, but my lips are sealed. But let's just say once again, it will be another level up from whoever wins that particular match. So we will see that. But guys, this has been a Collision review. Dave is back, so you can all rejoice. Everyone can rejoice. Dave is returned and he'll be back with the AEW stuff. Until next time, though, everybody, guns up, bang, bang, and stay safe.